give you this meeting.
No, you can keep. It's fine.
All right. So apologies, I don't have a well-prepared set of things to talk about, but the things that come to mind. Cyril, we want to talk about your latest.
Yeah, I just shared it publicly, so I'm gonna pass the link here. Yeah, so I did wrote a new design doc for the local V2. So we call it now local V2. And I'm guessing that there will be more than V2. We're probably going to have V3 and V4. The V2 only focus on extracting labels and sample value from the logline. If you want to see where we want to go in the future, there's another design doc that has a way broader scope, but this is not approved or yet. We haven't got a consensus on the whole doc. However, this smaller doc, we should be having a consensus by either the end of this week or next week. So if you have anything to say, feel free to look at this new documentation. It should be easier to review because it's really focused on a specific use case. And if you have any question, concern, anything, leave it on the doc, and I reply, and I will reply. And also for those who will be attending GrafanaCon, or those who were asking if they were wondering if they were about to join GrafanaCon, I'm going to be doing a demo of this during GrafanaCon. So I've already hacked around this, and I will be showing off how this works.
Yep, the other sort of exciting new feature that we'll be talking about in that demo as well, and that we've are running a little bit more now of the BoltDB shipper. So this is the sort of probably sort of name I guess we'll probably stick with for that. So this is replacing a separate index store like Cassandra or Bigtable using the BoltDB files and then shipping them to the object store. So Sandeep's been doing some really good work for that. We're running that internally on a small environment, and next week I'd like to promote that to a big environment. I mean, we've been so far so good, but we're gonna have to get some volume on it to really see, I think, what's gonna happen. So we'll probably run that in parallel in our ops environment for a week or two, and then the intent there is to replace our current ops environment with the BoltDB shipper. The big sort of to-dos there will probably be around deletes. I think we need to maybe, I know Sandeep, you have a doc up for this somewhere on some of the challenges with kind of synchronizing deletes when you have a non-deterministic index.
Yeah, so the plan is to do those changes when we introduce deletes in Loki. So right now we are not going to change anything related to that.
I'll just put in the notes. We just want to make sure we're not going to get painted into a corner there, but I think we'll be okay.
Do we have that will be interesting. Do we have some sort of documentation on how to get started on the BoltDB shipper?
There is in the docs a sample config and some basic background stuff. I was able to sort of figure it out. I mean, we could rewrite, well, docs in general. I need to be, let's put that on the list here too. But yeah, I'm probably not the right person to say if they're good or bad because I'm a little too close to the project to figure it out. But I have it set up now. I have a Raspberry Pi that's writing with BoltDB shipper, and then I can rsync the chunks directory to another computer, and with a different Loki read the same logs, which is kind of cool. And so setting it up didn't seem too bad. The big difference with how we've implemented BoltDB is in how the store works for tracking. I think I'm saying this right, but basically you can't schema change your way through multiple BoltDB shipper configs. Like if you decided you're using an object store like GCS, currently you could change the schema to say I want the new object store to be, S3, right? If you're using the BoltDB shipper, you would need to copy your index files to your new store. So we should make sure that gets documented. So you can change your schema in your stores, but you would require you to manually copy because the BoltDB shipper is only going to look at one store for the index files.
So no, I mean, the actual problem is we won't allow you to change the store. You can change the schema still by adding a new schema, but you need to have the same store to be able to locate your previous BoltDB files.
You could change it, but not seamlessly though, right? Like you probably have to stop Loki, make sure everything was copied, start Loki pointing at the new store.
Only
it's
if you are
not-
changing the store.
Right.
If you can just change the schema without changing the store.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we just need to document that there's a new requirement. So either don't change your store, right? Or if you do, it's not going to be as seamless.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody outside Grafana here that's running Loki. We panicked all of our ingesters the other day. There's a bug on the query path that caused the panic, which is really bad. There's a fix for it. I actually don't know when it was introduced, but it was probably in 1.4. That optimization, right, Cyril, for doing the empty. Is that when that was introduced?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's real bad. So we wonder if we should either do. So I want to do a 1.5 release, maybe next week. We got a fair amount of stuff. The BoltDB shipper will just sort of do as experimental, but I think it's probably close enough that we can do that and have people start using it as a beta feature to give us feedback. Does that seem reasonable? That gave us something a little newer too for talking about our presentation. Unfortunately, this one's going to come with all of the config changes too, though. So, dear Loki community.
To cut a point release just for the fix?
No, there's other stuff.
So 1.5 would be for other things. Are you saying could we do like a 1.4? We actually have a 1.4.1 already. Like do a 1.4.2.
Just to make upgrading really painless without any other changes other than the fix.
Yep. We should do that.
Yeah, we could do
So
that.
you want to do a 1.4.3 just for 0.2 for the fix, and then 1.5 with the config change?
Yeah, we could cherry pick that. It's one. Well, yeah, it doesn't really matter. We can cherry pick that just to help.
Yeah. Although it's if you know about the bug, you can avoid to trigger it because it's not a valid query.
Yeah, but if people don't control what their users are doing, like in this case, right?
Yeah. What was it, Gutam? It's like an empty regex?
Yep, it's empty contains or like anything that selects empty.
Okay.
Dot star or just contains empty.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'm going to talk about this because we optimize that specifically because there's certain dashboards that do that. Do we still have that optimization with this fix?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was basically just don't run a regex filter with it if it's empty, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so
Yeah,
1.5 maybe next week or the week after. Maybe I'll time it a little closer to our talk. It's a little bit of promotion.
Owen, do you have some news for the alerting?
Yeah, I don't think I have a public design doc out yet, but that should be coming very soon regarding alerting based on logs. And the tentative plan right now is to use the ruler component from the upstream Cortex where we can, and extend it a little bit to handle log QL and logs. And that's something that we've seen, I'm not sure if contention is the right word, but a couple of different opinions about. But I should have that out soon. And then I guess the only other thing from my end is I've been continuing to work on a bunch of like sharding optimizations in my free time for a few months now. There's a PR up for that. It needs a little bit of work left, but I think we're pretty close. I don't know, Cyril, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I'm waiting for this new sharding. So this already exists in Cortex, and this work is to Owen is bringing that to Loki in a different way though. And I'm waiting for these changes because I'm expecting actually a very big improvement in terms of performance from this one. Because so far we only are able to split queries by time, which can be tricky with Loki, and being able to split by shard will help us to parallelize way better.
Yeah. So as Cyril said, right now we split by time in the query front-end component, right, which is like one dimension of parallelization we can get.
Yeah, so 5 minutes.
When we say sharding, it actually refers to the Cortex schema, where we allocate series or log streams in this case in a number of shards. So it allows us to then separate by like remap queries into more parallelizable forms, which can then run like sub-aggregations and sub-queries on subsets of the log streams. So it'll give us another dimension to parallelize by. This is particularly attractive for Loki because one of the bottlenecks we run into now is we are running up against a problem parallelizing by time because you can't split everything by 5 seconds, 10 seconds, etc. because you'll end up pulling the same chunks on different queryers. So there's a lot of work duplication there. And this will allow us to increase the times that we split by on that dimension, but then parallelize by another dimension as well. So it should allow us to optimize the first one while giving us another.
Yeah. So in one of our cluster, we are like, I think we are doing a 15-minute time split. So if you do an hour query, you'll get 4 query of 15 minutes. And for some of the cluster, we have like 5 minutes, and we realize it's good. But if we go down, then we're gonna run into the trouble that Owen explained. So that's why sharding will be really helpful here. It will allow us to split by 16 without having a very small time range. And there's a question: is the query front end used in Loki the same package in Cortex? Yeah. It is using the same package. It's actually using the same front-end package and worker package. The only difference, and also the middleware, but the only difference is for some of the path, we have a different code base. But otherwise, it's very much the same. And caching, yes, we don't have cache on. We have cache only. So if you use the front end with Loki, the only result cache that you're gonna get is from metrics, which is the Cortex one. We don't have cache on logs. So this is something I'm working on.
Can you maybe expand? What do you mean working on? What's the status like? Because we will be touching query frontend on tunnel side as well. So just curious.
So I've been actually working for a while on this, and I've tried really how to use the Cortex result cache. Until recently, I realized that this was the problem. So I'm actually starting a new middleware for that, specifically for Loki. So the caching part will be very specific to Loki. And I'm not going to reuse Cortex. Actually, I'm going to reuse the same idea of, I don't remember the name of that, but intent, I think. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is going to be exactly the same for the cache, but it's going to be different because in Loki, you can't really cache a wall time range or a wall split if you have hit the limit, because it means that you have a partial result, right? So I'm working on basically not caching if you have reached the limit, and only caching if you don't reach the limit. So that's this small difference make it very difficult to reuse Cortex code.
Cool, makes sense. Thanks.
You want to talk about your Protobuf optimizations, Cyril?
Yeah, I mean it's in review. We haven't. I think it's good to go. I like it to actually. So far, I've been testing this only in dev, and it shows like a better CPU usage, but an increase in memory. However, this increase in memory is not coming from allocation because we do allocate way less. So it seems that when we look at the garbage collection, the garbage collector is somehow collecting less often than before, but we do have higher memory. So I still need to put pressure on Loki memory to see if this will be okay, because I was able to reach something like in a cluster of 5 inches, I was reaching like 17 gigabyte of memory used. And at some point it was plateauing. It was doing a plateau. But I still need to look at if I have less memory, will it garbage collect everything? In terms of improvement, this improvement basically it's using custom Protobuf type. And it's the same idea that, so there's like two optimization when I use this custom type. The first one is the same that Cortex is doing, the YOLO string.
YOLO string.
Yeah, the YOLO string. So basically there's a buffer. So when we unmarshal an object or a stream, we pass it a buffer, and this buffer will be thrown away once the unmarshalling is done. And there's in the Protobuf generated code, it will always do a copy of the string instead of doing a hacky way of creating a string from the pointer reference. And so this is one of the optimization, and it does create less allocation. And the second optimization is we use timestamp in the Loki stream and in the entries. And timestamp in Protobuf is having a bug in terms of allocation. Every time you ask for the size of it, it will create an allocation. So this was causing a lot of memory traffic, and now all of this is being improved. So the only really side effect that I've seen so far is an increase in memory, and I wasn't really expecting that. So I still need to test this with basically pressure. I want to put a limit on Loki because my limit was way too high to verify that there were no memory issue. So I want to see if the garbage collection will trigger often. But it seems that this change has made the garbage collection trigger way less often.
All right. Thanks, Cyril.
Yeah, I will link the PR.
Yeah, does anybody have anything that they want to talk about or ask about? We covered what's kind of new. Only other couple things I can think of that are new, unreleased, but I refactored how the sort of how the limits are being applied. We've been tightening limits in our environments. Our defaults in some cases I think are way too generous. Specifically, active streams. I think the default was like 20,000. This is a lot for Loki, and specifically, it's a lot when people have very low volume. This is kind of the new hard area that we're seeing. Like it's actually easier to deal with people that have very high volume, but you know, we just recently started doing like free trials, and people sign up and they like to go configure labels with dynamic values like, you know, IP address or something, and then just create tons and tons of streams that log relatively slowly or not at all because of that cardinality, and then it ends up flushing, you know, tons and tons of tiny chunks, which is sort of bad for the overall health of the system in general. So
I realized something yesterday. I was wondering if anyone has a feedback about this, but and I think we already talked about it, Ed, together. Should we remove the instance label? I have a feeling that in all the analysis and usage I've done of Loki, I never use the instance. I still think it's very interesting to be able to know which instance is logging, but it doesn't seem to be useful as a label.
I don't know if it would change anything if we did, right? Like, does it? Well,
I think
yeah,
it will.
okay, it would, because every time pods restart. I mean, I have used it on occasion when something particular happened and I knew, you know, when. But like, if you have a time range, you can accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, or you could filter.
Yeah,
using...
the trouble. So we're kind of moving more in the direction of. We're definitely moving more in the direction of guidance for configuring, you know, fewer labels, static labels only. Really, dynamic labels are definitely a big problem. Mostly just because people don't have volume, right? Like if you're trying to fill a 1 megabyte chunk, it's compressed at 5 or 8x, right? Like you need 5-10 megabytes of uncompressed log data. You know, we had default limits of an hour. Most people don't logs that quickly. And if you split that stream now, if you start splitting by log level and, you know, you name it, right? So you took a, you know, stream that wasn't fast enough, split it a bunch of ways. You're really favoring people use filter expressions, querying, and then the enhancement that Cyril's going to do will help a ton there, where they can extract labels from the log lines at query time. So that will help complete that circle. But yeah, anywhere you can remove labels that change values frequently, instance is definitely one we should probably look at.
The only problem I see with removing this label is it's still useful to have it at some point, so you can find the information. So I don't know if there is any way to add it as part of the log, or like I will still need. I just don't want to index on it. It doesn't seem to be useful to index on the instance label, but I still need to be able to see which instance.
I think it kind of underlies another problem, which is it's fairly difficult to, or it requires a lot of knowledge to like use Loki really effectively, right? So like these are things that we're figuring out, building and running locally internally, and Loki generally runs for, you know, on the behalf of others, multi-tenanted system. And so I do definitely think this is an example of something it's helpful to have, and it's something that a lot of people will likely index on, right? Or it's indicative of like introductory patterns. So I think that it should that we should probably try to optimize for this use case. But so I think that we should probably keep the labels, I guess, because it'll force us to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to close that loop there, so there's one metric now, Loki ingester discarded samples total, I think, which covers all of the reasons that something is hitting a limit. previously it was also shared with Cortex ingester discarded samples, the metric, but that one doesn't exist anymore. So it makes it a little easier in a multi-tenant environment to keep track of, who's having trouble. And we should probably, I got to circle back and probably reapply the defaults that we're using now into the defaults into like the KSonnet and Helm charts, so that people are at least have a fighting chance. I mean, all of this is kind of circumstantial, right? Like you can run Loki just fine with tons of labels if your volume is, essentially relatively small. But at some point, every time you shard some or split some log stream into X number of label-based streams, you create way more chunks, which is files on disks or in your object stores, and it's just a lot more overhead and problematic. So the idea really is to push people away from using the index. The index is there for, gross categorization, but, you're going to get your log results by using filter expressions. And soon in LogQL v2, extracting labels on the fly. All right, we're basically at times. Anybody have anything else they want to?
Yeah, I was asking if there's Edisha on the call, if he wants to give a status for the log stash.
There is no update. Just waiting for Ed on the logback. Review, and also in the log stash I'm waiting on you. That's it.
So for the log stash, you're waiting for me also?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look.
Yep, and I will. This week is a tough week. Next week I should have a chance to get some of your reviews added to you and get you back on track. So apologies there, but thanks for. We got lots more for you if you've got time. I'm queuing up stuff for you to work on.
Yeah, I
really appreciate it.
I actually created 2 issues last week, which I think should be done at some point. One is being able to scrap object storage from Promtail. So let's say I have a data in S3 or in GCS or whatever object storage we can think of, and I want to be able to scrap this data and send it into Loki. And this seems to be not too difficult to integrate into Promtail, and I created an issue for that. There seems to be at least one person interested into this, but I definitely see other use case. And there's another issue I created that it's for the Promtail replacing label. There's a lot of people that have issue with the current pipeline stage. They want to be able to, let's say, remove data by matching. So like password or an IP and URL, they want to be able to remove it. And so I propose here that we add a stage that allows you to replace instead of matching.
Yeah, we get that request a lot for sure, being able to strip sensitive data. That would be nice. All right. We're out of time. So thanks, everybody. And see you in 3-4 weeks. Is it every month we do this, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, once a month.
All right,
everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks
Bye,
a lot,
everybody.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Have a good day. Bye.